Good morning, welcome to the River Church. I'm Katie. It's lovely to be speaking this morning. This week, Rick and Cheryl are away for the weekend, so they've asked me to speak, and I'm talking on the theme of rest. This is something that God's been talking to me about for the past few years now. It's something that I'm not naturally very good at, and he's been teaching me how to get better at. So we're going to be looking at Psalm 23 together, looking at that theme of rest, and I'll be sharing a bit of my own experience in that. So I think this is something that's really timely for us to look at, coming out of lockdown and refiguring out how to live, how to go about our days. And it's something that I don't think society necessarily knows what to think about. I think society is a little bit confused on this theme of rest. So on the one hand, we live in a very busy culture. We live in a culture where it's almost like something to be proud of, how busy that we are. I don't know if you've heard the phrase, sleeping is cheating, or I'll sleep when I'm dead, or sleep is for the weak. These are all things I've heard, jokingly probably, but also with a little bit of, oh yeah, I can do everything, I don't need to rest, I don't need to stop, I am basically Superman, Superwoman. And there's a little bit of a fear of missing out going on there as well, like if you take time out, or if you rest, or if you're sleeping, you're missing out on something fun that's happening. And then there's this pressure for us to be really productive with our time. So just this morning I saw an advert on social media for making sure I was choosing the right app to have my side hustle business on. This advert just assumed that I do have a side hustle business, and I was just making sure that I was monetizing it correctly. So like, if you have a hobby, it cannot just be a hobby, you have to be somehow making money out of that hobby. I feel like there's a lot of that pressure in society at the minute. So that's on the one hand. Then on the other hand, we've got these messages around self-care, making sure we're taking time out for ourselves, which again is a little bit confusing, because it's not just your standard, like, make sure you get enough sleep and drink enough water. It's a bit like, make sure you have a luxurious bubble bath every night, or eat really expensive chocolate, or go on a spa day at the weekend. And I wonder potentially if companies have cottoned onto something and are just trying to make a bit of money out of that phrase, self-care. And I think also potentially, whether you're a man or a woman, those things probably get marketed to you a little bit more. I would say potentially women, we get the self-care bubble baths thing plugged at us a little bit more, and potentially men get the side hustle, sleeping is cheating thing pushed at you a little bit more. So I think that society is a little bit confused, and we don't know whether to think that resting is showing weakness, or whether resting is this luxurious thing that we should all be aiming for. So this morning we're going to look at the Bible, we're going to learn what the Bible has to say about rest, we're going to find wisdom there and truth there. And we're going to look together at Psalm 23, and it's quite a familiar psalm. It might be the most famous one. It gets used in films, it gets read at funerals. So I just encourage you not to switch off just because you've heard these words before, just because they're familiar words, because there's still stuff that Jesus wants to talk to us about from it this morning. So Sarah's very kindly offered to read. So do you mind reading us Psalm 23?
The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Great, thank you. So you can see why it's popular. It's this beautiful, peaceful imagery about God looking after us, being our shepherd. And there's loads of great truth in here, and we're not going to get to it all today. And it's not that this is all about rest, but that's the thing we're going to focus on today. That's the theme we're going to pull out from it today. So the psalm starts off, the first 4 verses, we're in this image of God being our shepherd, the Lord being a shepherd. And in the first verse it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Or yours might say, I shall not want. So this first verse is making it really clear that there is a need for us to rest, because rest is a statement that says, I am someone who is cared for. I am someone who someone is taking care of me. My father's taking care of me. The shepherd's taking care of me. And when David wrote this, he had experienced this. He was a shepherd. So he's writing knowing that being a shepherd meant feeding the sheep, getting water for the sheep, keeping the sheep safe, fighting off lions and bears and anything that would be a threat to the sheep. He knows that that care is a really active role that the shepherd is playing for the sheep. So when he's writing the Lord is my shepherd, he's saying the Lord is actively taking care of me. The Lord is actively looking out for me, making sure that I can rest. So this first bit where it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing, or I shall not want. Here we can find a statement that says that resting is trusting in God, that resting is not a weakness, but resting is saying, I'm trusting my Father to look after me. And we know that if we want good sleep, if we want to sleep really well, we need to feel like we're somewhere safe. We need to feel like we're somewhere secure, somewhere we can actually, really relax and go to sleep well. I don't know about you, but I'm scared of spiders. And if a spider is in my room and I'm trying to sleep at night, it's not going to go well for me. If I can see a spider and I can see particularly that it is moving towards me, then I'm not settling down and having a relaxing time and going off to sleep feeling safe. I'm feeling like there is a threat. It's coming towards me and we need to do something about it. I even once, you can ask me about this after, I even once slept in my garden to avoid a spider that was in the room I was sleeping in because it was coming near to me and I couldn't handle it. So if you're in a situation where you don't feel safe, and that's a very minor example, but if you're in a situation where you don't feel safe, you can't relax, you can't rest, you can't sleep well. So saying, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing, I shall not want, is us saying, he is God and I am not. He is taking care of me and I can rest. So resting is lining up with that statement. Resting is a bold thing to do. It's an act of faith. It's an act that says, I know I can stop. I don't need to work 24/7 because God's the one who keeps the world spinning and God's the one who is going to look after me. So that's the first thing. We should rest because it says who God is and it says who we are and it says that we trust him. It's an act of faith. The second reason we should rest is because God said so. So in verse 2 it says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He makes me lie down. So God has declared to his people, prior to David writing this in the book of Psalms, he said to his people, you need to have a day every week that's a holy day, a day that's set apart. This is the Sabbath day. We're not going to work. We're going to rest. So God has instructed his people to make sure they're getting rest. This is something important to God. This is something he's declared that they should do. So here it says, he makes me lie down. This is not, I just happened to fall asleep and God waited and he was kind of cool with it. He makes me lie down. He makes me rest. He leads me towards rest. So God knows what's good for us and he's declared that part of us being well and whole and having life to the full is getting rest. And I experienced this when I booked a holiday for myself a few years ago now. And I really wanted to learn how to surf. And I was going to go away for a few days and learn how to surf. And so I went to, I know you're thinking, wow, that sounds so exotic, going away to learn to surf. And you're right, it was, because I went to Scarborough and I learned to surf. Well, that was my plan anyway. I was going to learn to surf. And I booked myself surf lessons and got there and settled in and got ready, got myself to the beach, got to my first surf lesson, was so pumped, was telling the guy this is it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to crush it. And he was really pumped about it. He's like, yeah, we're going to get you standing up, let's go. And you do your safety thing, you get in the water, you're having a little bodyboard, you're having a little paddle. And he's like, right, come on, next time you're going to try standing up. So first time I try standing up and I dramatically fall off the board and we're in very shallow water obviously because we're beginners, and I really land very weirdly on my ankle and sprain my ankle really badly and have to get out the water and leave my surf lesson, hobble across the beach on my own, wrestle my wetsuit off over my now swelling foot and get myself to A&E to check that it wasn't broken. So I had this plan for this week of I'm going to go in, I'm going to learn to surf, and this was God making me lie down. This was God being like, no, that's not the plan for the week. You need to be sitting, you need to be resting, you need to be still, you need to read a book, you need some time with me, you need to rest, you're tired. So this is one experience I've had where I feel like God really made that happen. And the reason I feel like he did was because just before I'd gone to the surf lesson that morning, I'd been to a charity shop and I'd bought loads of books, and I hadn't bought books in ages because I always have too many and I should read the ones I already have. But I was like, look, you're on holiday, buy a couple of books in the charity shop. So I bought like 5 or 6 books. And then I'd gone and done this, fallen off and hurt my foot. And I really felt it was God like, look, sit and read your books. That's the kind of week you need. You've been really busy. You've been really tired. You need a really peaceful, restful week, not a super active week, not a learning new things week. You need to sit and you need to rest. So I just love you to have a little think, like as I'm sharing my experience, what your experience with rest is. Is it something you feel like you know how to do well? Is it something you struggle with? Do you find yourself really busy all the time or really tired all the time? And have you ever had an experience like that where you feel like you've come to a bit of a emergency stop and God's had to sort of say, no, time to lie down? I wonder what that was like for you. Maybe we'll have some time to discuss that at the end. So there are our first couple of reasons of why we should rest, because it says who God is and who we are, because he has said it. He has said that it's good for us to rest. So then the question is, how should we rest? How should we rest well? Well, verse 3 says, he refreshes my soul. So things that bring us rest are things that refresh us, or in yours it might say restores my soul. Things that restore us, things that make us feel like ourselves again. So for me, some things that help me do that, going for a walk outside, sitting in a cafe for a bit and people watching, going for a swim. Sometimes I do park run on a Saturday morning. I find that really restful. Singing, especially singing when I'm alone in the house and I can really belt it out, or alone in my car. Listening to a podcast, things that I can just switch off and do. So I don't know what that is for you. That might be something physical, that might be running, or doing something sporty, or it might be something creative, it might be drawing, or it might be cooking, it might be calling a friend or meeting up with a friend. What for you refreshes you? What for you restores you? And where does that happen in your week? If you think about your next couple of weeks coming up, where have you got those times where you know you're going to be refreshed, you know you're going to be restored by what you've planned? And to help me do this and rest well, a couple of years ago I realised I only owned really one bag that I would ever carry around, and it was my work bag. So I'd carry my work bag around with me. I worked Sunday to Thursday. And then at the weekend, I would also carry my work bag around with me. But then it would have random work things in. Then I would find work things and I would think, I really need to sort that. Or I really need to send that email. Or I forgot to leave this thing there. And so I really felt like I'd been reading and I'd been preparing actually to give a talk about the Sabbath. And I really felt like as I was reading and seeing that the Sabbath was this day that was supposed to be different from the other weekdays, it was supposed to be set apart. So I had the idea of getting myself a bag that was just my weekend bag. So this is it. This is my bag. This is my weekend bag. You might have seen it before. It's looking a bit more battered now than it was then. But this is my yellow bag. And I bought it because it's fun. And I bought it because I wanted something that said, when I put this bag on, I'm going to go away and do something that's restful. I'm going to go and do something that's fun. Because I found myself on my days off just doing things that I had to do or should do, and not things that were things that would refresh me or things that would restore me. So I got myself my little yellow bag, and I do love it. It's very cute. The only issue is I live with Charlotte and she also has one, so we have to now make sure we don't coordinate and don't both wear our yellow bags at the same time, because then it's a little bit overkill. But that's something I did to help myself. And my friend, I've got a friend who he does other things like that on his weekend. He makes sure that he uses a different shower gel, or he eats a different cereal that's just for weekends. So he keeps some things for his weekends that are like treats. So I'd also encourage you to have a little think about, how do you make your day off? And I appreciate if you're working shifts, if you're working nights, however you're working, that day off might change each week. It might not be that, that's a Saturday, but whatever your week looks like, or your next couple of weeks looks like, wherever that time is that you're going to feel refreshed and restored, how do you make that time look a little bit different to the rest of your week, the rest of your days? So that's something that I found really helpful. But I think the key thing for me has been realising that all those activities I've just listed, going for a walk or singing or whatever it is, they won't feel restful if I'm doing it and I'm doing it in a way that's sort of hiding from Jesus. And this is potentially quite difficult to explain, but I think you know the feeling when you're inviting Jesus into something and you're acknowledging him in it and you're saying, oh, thank you for, this beautiful place that I'm walking, or thank you for the beach, or thank you that I can go for a run, or thank you for films and cinema and people that make them and make things that are beautiful and interesting. And then there's other times where you can be doing a very similar activity. So I could be sitting watching a film at home, but it's not restful because I know that I'm sort of procrastinating. I don't know if like me, you're a bit of a procrastinator and you put things off, or you're sort of hiding, and this is not really like a restful feeling now. This is just sort of distracting myself. That's been my experience anyway. So the next bit in the psalm, it says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And I think that's a really key thing about rest, is that we're resting with Jesus, that Jesus is involved in that we're not trying to do that because we're trying to like hide or get away or just distract ourselves or that kind of thing. And that doesn't mean that now what I'm saying is the rest, things that bring us rest should be like Bible study, or do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be that, but whatever you're doing, you're drawing or you're cooking or you're going for a walk or whatever it is, inviting Jesus into that and acknowledging his goodness to you in that, and the fact that he's given you these things to enjoy, rather than just trying to enjoy those things and sort of ignore him in the process. That's something anyway that I'm like still learning. Even this week I've like gone back to God and said, I'm really sorry, I've been feeling tired, and so I'm trying to rest, but actually I'm just choosing things that they're not restoring my soul. And in verse 3, the psalm says, he guides me along the right paths, or yours might say, in righteousness. And so I think we can have a helpful little check that the things that are supposed to refresh us, the things that are going to restore us, the things that are going to bring us rest are going to be along those right paths, are going to be in righteousness. So for me, that means maybe not binging things on Netflix, because at the end of that, I don't feel refreshed, I don't feel rested, I don't feel restored. I just feel like, oh, what have I just been doing with that time? Or it might be for you, just say, like a silly example, just say if you've decided, right, my hobby, I'm going to play golf. That I find that relaxing. I'm like working on my swing, that kind of thing. But if you decide you're going to take up golf and you're going to do it from your back garden and hit golf balls at your neighbour's house and break their windows, then we've got an issue. So you're still like, well, this is something that restores me and refreshes me, but now it's causing a problem for your neighbour. So when we're talking about walking along right paths and doing these things in righteousness and doing these things with Jesus, we have to think about the things that we're using to relax and to rest and to refresh ourselves. They need to be things that we are happy welcoming Jesus into. So no random criminal damage or nothing that, is actually not good for you or not good for your neighbour. That's something I'm definitely still learning, not about golf balls, but about on social media, how you can just sort of scroll and scroll and scroll and you think, okay, well, I just need, a little bit of time just to switch off. But then it can just go on and on and on, and you eventually end up just feeling weird and drained and not very refreshed. So that's something I'm still learning. This is not something that is sorted, or this is not like the end of my story and I was like, oh, I used to be terrible at resting and now I'm incredible and let me tell you about it. But Jesus is still teaching me how to find rest. And I'd love for you also to learn. And maybe you've got things to teach me. I'd love to talk about it with you afterwards. If you, have something that works really well for you that you find really restful. The final thing that I just want to end on, the psalm talks about the shepherd, and the shepherd is really active. The shepherd says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down. He leads me. He refreshes my soul. He guides me. this is all God's doing. The reason we can have this rest is that this is something that Jesus has won for us. Jesus says that he is the good shepherd. And I don't know if you know this about the Psalms. We often think about the Psalms as, it's this collection of poems and hymns that have been put together. And that's true, but it's not a hymn book in the way that we have hymn books and they're just kind of in alphabetical order. It's a hymn book, but these poems and songs have been put in an order that's really specific and it's telling a specific story. So this psalm here, Psalm 23 that we're looking at today, comes after Psalm 22. And I don't know if you know that psalm, but it starts, my God, why have you forsaken me? And this is written hundreds of years before Jesus came to earth as a man. And these are the words that Jesus speaks on the cross. He talks about the fact that he's been despised by people, that it says, I'm poured out like water. It's a psalm of sort of despair, crying out to God. And these are the words that Jesus speaks on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? But at the end of that psalm, it says, he has done it. I'm reminded of Jesus' final words when he said, it is finished. And the reason that we can have this rest is because of what Jesus has done. The reason that we can relax in the presence of God, which is a place that we should find terrifying, is because Jesus has welcomed us in. The reason that we can say, my Father's taking care of me, is because Jesus has won for us on the cross our adoption. So when it says, he restores my soul, he refreshes my soul, if we all just decide to go away and just think, right, I need to make sure I, get out of the house and go for a walk once in a while a little bit more, that's good, but it's not quite what we need. I'd just love to encourage us to welcome Jesus in to everything we're doing. So when we do the things that refresh us and bring us joy, just acknowledging that they are gifts from Jesus, the things that he has won for us, the things that he has made for us and created and gifted to us. So I hope I've convinced you that where society is a little bit confused and thinks that rest is weakness, it's not. It's an act of faith. And where society thinks that rest is just self-indulgent, it's not. In fact, in verse 4 where it says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I don't know what that word comfort brings to mind for you. For me, I just think of like being wrapped up in a big blanket and maybe having a little nap. That's what I think of when I think of being comforted. But actually, usually in the Bible, the word comfort means to strengthen. If you think about the end of the word fort, think about like a fort, a castle, somewhere that's a place of defence and military strength. And you think of our word fortify, or to have fortitude is to have strength. And so the point of rest is to be strengthened. And we need to be strengthened because, like Rick was sharing last week, we've got a really big vision. We've got really big things that we feel God's called us to as the River Church here in the North East. We want to see people turn from idols and serve God and wait for Jesus to return. So we need to rest up. We need to rest well, and we need to rest often, because that's a big vision and it's a long vision.